Love, love, Lord, till I be but breath of thy spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Pamela LaPersonne. She's going to share her faith story and about happiness and the miracle of life. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you, Geraldine.
It's great to have you in our program. And you have a belief in the magic of life and the little miracles. Could you tell us more?
Absolutely. Little miracles are mystic experiences that I've had from the age of 15. And they could just be moments. But they're such astonishing moments that they are indelibly imprinted in my memory. And it was seeing the light like a silver lining around a new mother and the glow on a bride and my own radiance that I saw one day when I was literally walking on air. And that's the way it felt. I don't think anybody else would have seen it. But those experiences actually stayed with me. And later, when I actually went back to happiness, little miracles became my path, the guide that I follow, like jewels in the dust.
That's fantastic. And you have believed that Spirit of Life and the little miracles have a connection.
Very much so, yes, because I was thinking about what Spirit of Life means to me, since you haven't ever elaborated on it. And I realized my interpretation of it is happiness. And happiness, as I heard a quote by Emily Dickinson, who said, life is an exquisite spell that everyone conspires to break. And that conspiracy is all around us all the time. And to me, what she called life is happiness. Happiness is the exquisite spell. So the Spirit of Life, at first I thought, is the spirit of happiness. But with happiness, it's many facets and many and varied degrees of happiness. So I realized that it goes back to what I heard, the gospel I heard on Pentecost Sunday, when Father Gerard explained it for the first time, that I understood the Holy Spirit in me. And I've now come to realize, and I hope you agree with me, that Spirit of Life is the Holy Spirit in each one of us.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is very powerful, especially once you understand it.
Yes, can you give some examples of the power of the Holy Spirit and the little miracles?
It really, I became aware of it with impending pregnancy, when there was no question about being a full-time mother. My husband said we need a second income, so I went into business with no experience whatsoever of business. And these strange things started happening. This voice I heard when my first baby, Ryan, was due. It was just a voice that drifted through my head and said, no one will love them as much as me. Wow. And they are wow experiences. But the bigger things are when I went back to it and I started having these mystical dreams about guidance in my own life. So the dreams at first were huge and very complicated. But I realized that that's where everyone can tap into this mystery. Once we actually, when I say little miracles, it's actually surrender. You know, when problems get too overwhelming, I just surrender and say, over to you, just guide me. And it's incredible. It really is, Geraldine. I can't deny that.
Yes, and serendipity has a part to play in this?
Serendipity is part of the magic. It took a long time for me to accept that I was worthy of God actually being there to guide me. And I realize I'm still unworthy. But if we allow Him to, He does. So serendipity actually came through my professional life, where I noticed that my luck exceeded my wildest expectations. And so I say it's luck that's like carrying a genie in your pocket. And that brings it back to fairy tale element and level. And so we actually sophisticate ourselves out of happiness, whereas it's children who understand it the best. So serendipity, according to my dictionary, which is the Chambers version, says the faculty of making happy coincidences happen. So that faculty is a skill that anyone can acquire, and at best, it becomes an art form.
Wow.
So it is people talk about voluntary work and charity and things like that, especially the saints talk about charity and suffering and things like that. Coming at it from happiness, a happy point of view, making life happy, it's a totally different perspective. So for me, it's being willing to help. When people need help, and I'm available and I'm there and I believe I have the skills to help them, that's when serendipity, what you give is what you get. So it's the reciprocity that actually makes happy coincidences happen.
Yes, by putting into people's lives and being outward, you find that serendipity is alive.
I think whenever we are with others, putting them first instead of ourselves.
Yes.
And if there's a need, there usually is a need. And the wrong thing is to make them feel needy, because that's when they won't allow you to help. But if you make them feel special, you've already helped.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So, for instance, at a party, if you're there and it's the first time and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to be here, you concentrate on making it a joy for the people who are organizing the party. And then you're doing your share as a guest. So if we think of life as a party and all of us are guests or hosts, it's a very easy way of going about it.
Yes, that's wonderful, that focus, because I come from where I've been mentoring and counseling people, but I tended to look a lot at the negative or the problem, the need, and I do find that it makes it grow more, the problem, when you focus on that. So it's powerful. Yes.
Well, sorry, Geraldine.
Oh, that's okay. No, it's wonderful what you're saying, but we need to go for a break now. But I'll be excited to hear more about your story.
I'll be excited to tell it.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay tuned, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Pamela LaPersonne. She's been sharing about miracles, little miracles in her life. Welcome back,
Thanks,
Pamela.
Geraldine.
I was fascinated that you were sharing about focusing on solutions and focusing about problems.
Absolutely. Yes, there are golden rules that I follow that anyone can follow because we're all human and they work for us. So the simple rule about problems and solutions is focus on the problem and compound it, focus on the solution and create it. So ignoring problems is not a smart thing to do. So acknowledge the problem, acknowledge what's at the core of the problem, and then pay attention to someone else who has overcome a similar problem. And so you focus on that, and that becomes an image in your mind, and you automatically are taken towards it.
I mean, that's fantastic.
We are fantastic creations, but we just don't use our resources to the best of our abilities.
Yes, because we live in a society where people get very focused on their problems, and that can be such a blockage to being positive.
It's traumatizing. It is traumatizing, and the chemistry actually affects the brain, so you can't think correctly. When you're distressed, your brain gets frazzled, and you can't think straight. So you need to get out of that distressed state. Go and listen to some beautiful music, or read poetry, or listen to an inspiring speaker, and it'll get you out of that distress, so that you can actually go for the glory.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about alignment and misalignment. Is that something that is about focusing on the wrong thing, or how?
There are a lot of things about alignment. I'm not sure what specifically you're referring to.
About the different alignments, like survival, supremacy, relationships in business that you earlier spoke to me about.
Okay, so the people we align are like, there are a lot of relationships in our lives. I was talking to this young man who was talking about Aristotle talking about 3 types of friendships. But in fact, every relationship is unique and different. And we concentrate too much on relationships, whereas if we just get on with people and concentrate on our alignments with people who are going to help us reach whatever objective we want to reach, those are the ones that empower us.
Wow.
So the reverse of that, of course, is helping people, and so we're automatically aligning ourselves with someone who's taking us where we want to go.
Yes.
And that's the magic of helping.
Yes, and can you give an example about your life, about alignment and connections?
It was the first time that I was going on my own away from the family for a conference in Sydney, and I'm very careless with my cell phone, keeping it charged and things like that. So she actually put my SIM card into her cell phone, and the phone rang the next morning when it was pitch black, and it was the song that played was when you wish upon a star makes no difference where you are, and I love that song. But it got me into this other space where it was like being in a dream world, and the whole day, or the whole weekend actually, was influenced by that mood. So the conference itself was quite a disappointment.
I see.
But the few incidences on that trip, it was where I saw in Amazing Grace, the teacher tells William Wilberforce, he says, be in this world but not of it. And that weekend, because of my daughter's concern for me, that happened for a whole weekend.
Wow. And what are the barriers that stop us, being positive and being aligned to, the serendipity and the Holy Spirit?
The only barrier is ego.
I see.
Big heads. So ego has many, it is what allows evil into our lives. And I don't want to be melodramatic by using the word evil, because there are many degrees, and often it takes a long time for it to play out. But if we are doing something because of vengeance or personal gain or resentment or prejudice, all of those things are coming from ego, because we think we're superior to others, when in fact, when we go to our humanness, we're all the same. We were all created the same, and the deeper inside you go, the more you realize that.
Yes, and in our society today, there's a lot of prejudices that prevent us hearing the Holy Spirit.
Yes, absolutely. And for me, I had stopped praying after my dad died to cope with him, because he was because he was always in my prayers, and that's how I know how we reach rock bottom. Heartbreak is total annihilation, and I never ever lost faith in God as such, and that is what I wish I could give to every single person on this planet, because I knew that He would see me through. I didn't know how, because that's part of this mystery they tell us about, God's mysterious way, which I love. But when I went back to it, and this is when my little son said it's not cool to be happy, and I started praying again, that's when I started asking for miracles to show me that I was doing the right thing. So if we think that we have all the answers, even especially, I should say, where there's prejudice for no reason whatsoever, we're not going to get past it. We're not going to get past our tortured souls. So how we find the Holy Spirit, it goes back to God's golden rule, which is keep the Sabbath holy. And for me, it's I go to my music, I start the day with Elvis singing spirituals, and sometimes I put on the Soeda choir, which Desmond Tutu actually introduces.
That is fantastic. Music is powerful. On that note, we're going to go for our break now.
Oh no, Geraldine, I'm just
very
enjoying
interesting.
Yes.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Love, love, Lord, till I be but breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Welcome back to Spirit of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Pamela LaPersonne. She's been sharing about little miracles in her life. Welcome back, Pamela.
Thank you, Geraldine.
You've been inspiring me with your miracles that happen in your life and how you attune yourself to the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Yes. Could you tell me some methods you use to help you attune to the Spirit, Holy Spirit?
The Holy Spirit is something beyond my comprehension. But my relationship with Jesus is a very strong one, because I had an incredible Catholic upbringing. And when I say incredible, I was taught a love for Jesus. And it was a newly ordained nun, actually, that taught me in years 3, 4, and 5. And her love for him, she just seemed to dance through life. And I thought, what a lovely way to be. So it's really in reconnecting with Jesus himself and doing that several times a day. And that could be if you're passing a church, for instance, just saying hi and, speaking your heart from the heart. And he is the one who opens up the soul to the Holy Spirit. So that's what communion is about. And the more I surrender to him, and the more we learn to surrender to him, the more we can actually be the person that everyone wants us to be there for them from the heart. So opening to the Holy Spirit is probably something that we could stress over. And that very stressing over it is actually the block. Whereas music, if you put on, I was listening to the radio on the way here, and they played a song that was one of my favorites when I was young, which was Wonderland by Night. And that's by a German musician. And it was just so beautiful. You drift into another world. And the strange thing about that is when they talk about a Zen mind, you could be in that other world, but you're still totally switched on to do whatever you're doing. So it's actually the most powerful way of functioning.
Music and praying and spending time with God.
Reflection. Like, we are taught a lot of formal prayer, which is very important, especially the prayer Jesus taught us. But if we actually live the prayer, where we say, thy will be done, forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us. If we actually say those words and mean us, and give us this day our daily bread, I mean, you're not going to eat bread obviously according to the words, but we have everything we need to sustain us, especially in Australia. This is the lucky country. So we have everything to sustain us physically, but what we need to concentrate on is sustaining us from the inside, sustaining our humanness.
Yes, I think that's really good what you shared, because I know quite a lot of people who stress quite a lot about what is God's will. They worry, am I doing God's will, am I not doing? Mm-hmm. But I like the fact that you focus on being relaxed and music and not stressing. Absolutely.
When I started, and I asked for little miracles, it's miraculous how it happens. But I asked for 3 signs, because I'm highly imaginative and I could mistake some of the signs. So I started asking for 3 signs, and those signs come to us in the way only we can understand. It's quite amazing, but God speaks a lot of different languages, and the universal language is music. We all understand music, even if we don't speak the language. So he does, when we ask for his help and we ask for his guidance, he does speak to us. That doesn't mean he's going to grant us all our petitions. And if I say, hey God, come on, cure me, just show me your stuff, strut your stuff, he's not going to necessarily do that, because it's not something that he thinks, if I've created it myself, well, I can fix myself, physically. Yes. But what I ask of God is usually beyond me. And this prayer matter is even atheists, and this is with badminton. Badminton is more a religion than a religion as sport is. And an atheist friend that used to chat to me, when she had to get into the final, she had to play the semis and the quarters, and she'd had an accident and she was in hospital. Yes. And she actually prayed, and she said, whoever you are up there, she says, I know you've got a lot better things to do, but please, she said, please come and lift me up. She showed me, lift me up and let me win. And she said, Pamela, you would not believe it. She says, but we just cleaned up.
Wow.
Yeah. And she said, then they had to go into the finals. So she said, forgive me. She said, I know you've got a lot better things to do, but please, just this one more time. She said, just lift me up again. And they won the finals.
Wow.
So he does answer prayers. There's no question about it.
Is she a believer now?
She is not, but she obviously, one of her friends, her best friend, was a nun, and they talk about C.K. Lewis and Chesterton and Tolkien. So she had the knowledge, but I think to convince atheists, when they need him, then he's there. Absolutely. And I think a lot of Christians and Catholics are much the same. So it's this friendship with Jesus that you realize what friendship is really all about, because he's there incessantly.
Yes. And what would you say to people who struggle hearing God? Like, what would you say to them?
Probably not keeping quiet enough.
Spending time.
Well, this sister Ansela that I told you, who is so important to my growth, she told me a secret. She actually gave me 3 tips for my religion. One, she said, is sometimes when you're talking to Jesus, just don't say anything. She said, because if you're always talking, how can he hear you? How can you hear him?
Oh, I like that.
It's wonderful.
2 ears, not and only one mouth.
Well, it's not even that. It's actually being able to still your mind.
Yes.
And the other thing she told me is that you don't have to be boring to be good, which was incredibly liberating. And it's these little tips, if you actually follow them, that you sort of find they work wonders. And for me, music, in high school, I joined the church choir and the school choir. I love singing. But singing is the deepest form of prayer.
Yes.
That's when you really feel one with God.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's we had another guest a few weeks ago, and she also talked about singing and music and prayer. So you've been great to have on the show. And I hope to have you back another time. And I wish you all the best, Pamela, with all your work and the little miracles. And goodbye and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Geraldine. And I wish you a lot of little miracles.
Thank you very much. You have been watching Spirit of Life. Join us again next week. Goodbye and God bless you.